Is the Skysaber the best tier 10 Conqueror? Well, I think so. Hey everyone, Derpy here, welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. Today is Let's Build Skysaber. Let's go ahead and get started with the blank stats of the hull and see what is important. You'll notice right off the bat, I am also running some replays of people attacking my base in the background. People really like to see those things, even though it means it's a lot more work to edit the video. With the base armor points, it is the same as the Abomination, which may be important when we're discussing deflections later, so keep that in mind. This is a missile ship and has remote targeting enabled, which is fantastic. It means that when you're in the battle, there's a big yellow circle. If a second ship is in range and you can remote target and shoot at something 30% further away when you're not actually in range, but that big yellow circle is, it makes more sense when you actually get into battle. There's also more different missile buffs here, which are pretty interesting. Also, if your conquest yard is upgraded more than mine, you'll have extra building damage below this right here, so keep that in mind. In terms of defense, deflections are pretty low, except penetrative is moderate, and ballistic deflection is very high. You're not getting through that unless you have a really lucky crit on a really high damage weapon, so it's basically immune to ballistic damage for all intents and purposes at tier 10. Now, the thing I was saying with deflections is you'll notice this has 1 million penetrative deflection, whereas the Abomination has 0. You want the Omega Executioner to actually target the ship, this one, with the higher penetrative deflection as opposed to 0. So you may want to have the Abomination having 1 D5 EV plate on it, so the Omega Executioner targets that one instead of targeting your Skysaber. Although the damage from that is so low, it probably won't really matter. This is also a decently fast ship, especially compared to the Abomination, and has a half-hour repair time, which is standard. We'll discuss that again coming back to the armors. The really interesting thing about this hull, and is what to me makes it from a not-so-good ship to a very good one, is the Berserk. You'll see several people using this in my base, and it works quite well. It resets your reload, which is fantastic, although not that great on a smaller reload time weapon such as this one, but it does also double your combat speed and 2.5x your turn speed, which is really quite good. Let's go ahead and jump now into the weapons. There is really just one choice for the weapons, and that is the one that came with the hull, which is the Conqueror missile that we're going to be using. There is no other option. You're going to want to use the Thunderbolt missile. There's really, like I said, not even close, no other choices you could possibly even consider. Has 750,000 damage and a bit lower building damage, which is interesting. It can also shoot over mountains, which is what you would expect from a missile, so it goes over mountains. You're throwing that on there, really no questions asked. In terms of the different let's go ahead and go for specials now. I like to say there's 5 or 6 different attributes you're going to be looking for a Conqueror hull. That is number 1, movement speed, number 2, tactical field resist, number 3, evade, number 4, building damage, and number 5, damage type specific damage. Let's start out with that number 1, which is movement speed. You have 2 options for this, and that is the tactical onslaught engine or the regular unlimited normal onslaught engine. If you use the TAC, which is better, that's great. Throw that on there and couple it with Agility System 4. You'll have slow resist, stun resist, tactical field resist, movement speed evade, all in 2 different specials. If you don't have that and you're broke and can't afford all the bounty points, which, hey, that happens, you're going to want to use the normal onslaught engine as well as ECM dampener, which does give you a few different special abilities, including tactical field resist, which is what you're looking for. So if you don't have the best engine, use the normal one, which is the normal onslaught engine, as well as the thing I just showed you, which was the ECM dampener and the onslaught engine, which I can't find because the search bar is not very good, or still limited, that too, but it was cheaper and you have chances to have it in other places, so you may actually have this one if you don't have the regular one. I'm going to go ahead and throw on the best ones possible because that's what I have. At least, if not, I'll go ahead and scrap my Warhounds or Trenchers or something like that. And let's recenter this here. The next few things you're going to go for are going to be the building damage specials. The first option that most people would generally throw on a Conqueror hull is Conqueror Battery. This is probably not the best case for the vast majority of people unless you really need that extra combat speed, because the compounding effects of the 25% penetrative damage and the 75% building damage work out to be better than just the regular 80% damage for just buildings from this one. But if you do want combat speed, use Conquest Battery. If you don't, which I don't think you need because you can already double it like 10 times in the battle when you go Berserk, go ahead and use Assault Battery MKCUM. The next one is going to be another building damage special, and if you're most people, you probably have a natural inclination to throw on the Siege Targeting 4. This is not the best option, but it is better than Invasion Scanner, which I am noticing a lot of people using. There is almost no situation where this is better. It really just is not that good. If you're dealing with only ships, this could be better, but against anything that has buildings in it, like a base, this is really not the way to go. You do much less damage than Siege Targeting 4. But neither of these two are the best option in this case. Instead, I think that is Aft Razor Foils. You do lose 35% compared, well, percent on percent aren't the best, but you lose 35% building damage, so 130 instead of 165, but you do gain 30% accuracy and 100% projectile speed. So this is quite interesting, and I would use this if you were most people, unless we really need building damage for some reason. Next up, we're going to go for another damage type specific weapon, or the first damage type specific special, you could say instead. And this is going to be the one that came with the hull, which is no surprise, that is holographic targeting. This gives you plus 30% penetrative range. If you don't use a range special for this, you're going to be pretty disappointed. If you don't have this, you could probably use advanced optical tracking, or whatever other missile special that actually stacks you can find. It's probably going to be the best option here, no question, and it might be a bit tough if you don't have the points to get it, but you're going to have to pick it up eventually if you want anything close to a top build. Now, the last special right here, there's going to be a few different choices. What I would not use is either the Force or Scope for the penetrative weapon. It really just is not that beneficial, penetrative scope, penetrative force. I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't take away 15% of your damage for just having an extra, say, 5%. I wouldn't take away 15% damage for 9% range. I wouldn't take away 9% range for 15% damage. It's really just not worth it for me. By the way, you could also use, say, Guided Missile System as your missile range special if you wanted to, and this one doesn't stack, which it might not. Now, I would use, for the special slot number 6, I would use Carbon Fiber Casing. This gives you reload as well as damage, so it's a really good special overall. If you wanted more combat speed for some reason, the other option for you is Interception System, which gives you some damage as well as some combat speed. But I think Carbon Fiber Casing is going to be the way to go. Looking at the stats, you can see we do have a few different things that have been bumped up higher, although evade is still fairly low, and the accuracy is not that great. I mean, we do have plus 30%, but against an Overlord carrier with an evade of like 80%, it's not going to do great, so that is something to consider. Finishing out with the armors, you're going to notice that we only actually have 3 different Conqueror armors, one of which is ballistic, one of which is penetrative, and one of which is explosive. We can only assume we're getting the other 3 at some point. Because your ballistic deflection is already insanely high, I wouldn't add this one. It doesn't make sense. I probably wouldn't add the missile one either, because the only missile thing we have that actually does damage, unless people are using Gorgons, which I actually have seen some people use, but you're not hitting a million with that anyway, is the M10 armor plate. So that leaves the explosive one, which is probably a good thing to go for, especially against the volcanic heavy mortars that people are using in their base these days. And honestly, this is what I would build right here. I wouldn't add another 3 armor plates, at least not in today's game. If we get word that the concussive, corrosive, and radioactive armor plates aren't coming out, then sure, go ahead and add the tier 9 ones. But I'm not going to spend a day or so building something only to take it off later, and to have it add repair time. The tier 9 armors add 15 minutes repair time to a half-hour base build. You will double your repair time if you add on 2 of these armors, which I really would not do. And D5EV, well, that's even worse. It's 22.5 minutes, if I remember, for just that one thing. So armor, not really the way to go here, especially if it won't help out too much. Of course, if you're a top base hitter and you want to get in every base, don't care about your repair bill, then yes, you're going to throw those on here. If I was using something, I would probably use the concussive, that's number 1 against the Badger, because that thing does hurt this hull quite a bit. It has really low concussive deflection. And then the radioactive for the launcher turrets everyone is using in their bases these days, as well as finally probably going for the corrosive one if anyone still has a scattergun turret left in their base. This is the build that I'm going to go for, put up places, and you'll see that in the build stock in the description. Oh, by the way, did you know I have a Google document where you can see all my builds in the last like 2 or 3 years in the description of the YouTube video? Just go to the description, open that, click on the build stock link, 100% free. I'm just giving you that as a resource. Alright folks, if you have any questions on this build, go ahead and let me know. If you disagree, would go with something else, totally feel free to tell me that as well. I didn't actually get to play around on that previous server everyone else was on because I was on vacation. Anyway, going to go ahead and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my channel members who are supporting the channel. And as always, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.